American fighter planes based in England, operating in the skies of Western Europe against the German Air Force. This is the P-47, the Thunderbolt, a fast, tough, high-altitude fighter with a dive like its name and an 8-gun blast in its wings. Here is the Lightning, the P-38, master of the air in many theaters of war. The long range and concentrated firepower of this great fighter counted in Western Europe, too. The Mustang, the P-51, longest range fighter in the world. Speed, fast climb, quick dive, tight turn. A fighter pilot's dream. Into these three great fighters, America poured its genius, its millions of man-hours of labor, its faith in victory against the Luftwaffe. And in their single cockpits, it placed its carefully chosen sons, trained to a fighting edge, trained as never before. Here is their report, catch as catch could by their own gun cameras in the instant of action, and delivered in return for your toil and your treasure and your high hopes. This is a Thunderbolt base in East Anglia on the east coast of England. One of many such bases from which our fighter planes swarmed up into the far red yonder of battle to the east. Their main job, although they struck many other blows, was to escort and protect our heavy 4-engine bombers, the Big Friends, against the Focke-Wulf 190s, the ME-109s, and the enemy's rocket-lobbing twin engines, Ju-88s, ME-210s, 410s, and others. To attack them whenever, wherever, and in whatever strength they appeared. Our direct challenge for control of the air. Trucks bring the pilots from the field to the squadron dispersal hut for intelligence interrogation after the mission. Coffee and sandwiches if they want it. Little action today, just a routine escort.
You saw 4 190s on the field.
That's right. Kerry saw them, too. I think it was this field, Jack, further west. We made the 180 here and flew about 2 minutes on 340.
Well, that's about 15 miles south of Hanover. We thought that field was knocked out.
They seem like ordinary American boys, but look a little closer. Now they pile in a Jeep and ride to chop. They have Jeeps enough, but they like it this way. They kid a lot, high-spirited. And later they relax and enjoy the not-too-frequent sunlight. Unless some joker is present, and he usually is. They keep pretty fit, ready to stand anything up to 7 hours in a single-seater in substratosphere, alert every second. And they keep their eye in. This fellow has 22 destroyed. Well, he may have if he keeps at it. And they won't be clay pigeons. The old swimming hole is the same in England as at home. They had a beautiful summer in England that day. Little aquatic practice won't hurt either. They may have to make a high dive with chute and become a channel swimmer almost any time. Of course, it gives their airborne pals a fine chance to practice low flying a bit. The swimmers take no chances on this buzz job. Maybe they're learning not to get behind the 8-ball here. Put the 6 in the corner. Getting in shape for Wimbledon in a small way. Good shot. Keep your eye on the little white ball, Eddie. Keeping up with their crooning, naturally. May need that in the good old by and by. Everybody's favorite newspaper in this town. What goes on in New Guinea, China, and Luzon? What's happening at home? Best of all is their comradeship. Fellows who are trusting one another with their lives in this teamwork war learn to be friends. Somewhere else in England, and another day, from deep sweeps into enemy territory, a weather reconnaissance plane flies in. Its reports are cross-checked with many others, writing the destiny of today or tomorrow in atmospheric pressure lines. Fair in this theater means not impossible, and weather is almost enemy number one. At 8th Air Force, General Doolittle discusses fighter protection.
The 8th Fighter Command will give fighter cover to targets and back from the targets. It's desirable that we peel off as many fighters as possible to come down east of the Ruhr and strafe ground targets. How many do you want to peel off?
Well, General, we're spreading over a pretty wide area there. I'd recommend very seriously that we hold all strafing to a minimum.
All right. Go ahead and send that over to the 8th Fighter Command.
Yes, sir.
The bomber plan, timing, altitudes, forces, course, and targets have reached the combat operations room at Headquarters 8th Fighter Command, Major General Kepner commanding. Now the General and his Chief of Staff, Brigadier General Griswold, come in to inspect and discuss the plan of escort. Colonel Burns, operations, determines what group shall fly. Colonel James decides their disposition. Colonel Callahan, intelligence, estimates where and when the enemy will intercept. It's an intricate scientific plan, based upon information from many sources, and upon the route and location of the target. Then a field order goes out to the fighter wings, and through them to the fighter groups and squadrons which they control. This command supports 1st and 2nd Bomber Forces. 62nd Group P-47s will escort heavy bombers over enemy coast through target to limit of endurance. All observations will be reported over RT. The field order is received at the fighter base by the duty officer in group operations. He checks the field order for the group rendezvous time with the bombers. He calls maintenance, armament, and others. And in the still dark hours of the morning, a squadron intelligence officer shakes the pilots out of their deep sleep. Briefing at 6:30. Why can't they fight the war at a reasonable hour? Wake up over there if you want any breakfast. There's a show on. Crews, meantime, are warming and priming the aircraft. The crews are a vital part of this show. Tune their kites to fighting pitch. Going places as always, long-range wing tanks are fitted. Now briefing and everybody present. The colonel comes in. These fellows are veterans of many missions, so he gives them the essentials without ceremony.
Okay, boys, today we're going to escort 10 boxes of bombers, 36 ships to each wing. We're on the front end of the 1st Task Force, picking them up in the Mannheim area, around the target, about 20 miles east of Mannheim, at which time we will proceed up to the aerodromes north of Frankfurt, where we will strafe. Now today, I want to use the same system we used the other day. That is, dividing the field up into sections, one squadron only on the field at one time. When the ammunition is expended from that squadron, you'll move up and let the other top cover squadron come down and strafe.
Okay, boys, we'll start engines at 8:50, take off 8:58 to 9:06, rendezvous with the big friends 11:04, escort until 11:24, strafe until 12:16.
The pilots make notes on the back or palm of their left hands. No chance of losing that little memo in a moment of excitement, or not much chance.
Okay, any more questions? Intelligence?
Intelligence takes over.
Gentlemen, you may expect considerable enemy opposition today. The Germans have brought in some 100 single-engine fighters, chiefly 109s, some 190s, to stop the American drive across the Rhine. Watch your flank at the Rhine River, at Mannheim, and particularly in the Frankfurt area. Now, after we break escort, There are 4 aerodromes which we've marked in red pins. You're free to strafe those aerodromes, but watch out for the flag. There are probably about 30 guns on each airfield. Send a flight down to silence the guns before you attempt to hit the planes on the field.
Then time check. A minute is a long time for an air fighter. In 10 seconds, the time will be exactly 0658.
Good luck, man.
Surprised? These fellows know what's at stake. Each man takes his emergency kit and empties his pockets. A scrap of paper might tell a big story to enemy intelligence if he has to bail out. Last but not least, each pilot picks up his chute and rubber dinghy on the way out. 20 minutes before takeoff time, trucks bring the pilots to their planes. The group leader gives his own flight special instructions. Techniques are proven and fairly standard, but they're rugged individualists, these fighter boys, and each leader has a few ideas of his own. All right, let's get aboard. Helmet is not only for warmth, it holds radio earphones too. Oxygen mask contains the mic. No hands to spare on this one-man kite. Here this pilot will fly and fight in the icy substratosphere or dusting the treetops of Germany for anything from 4 to 7 hours. Oh, my aching back. All clear? Let's go. Takeoff by 2s on the quarter minute. Element leader and his wingman. Expert takeoffs and landings are a point of pride with every squadron. While at other bases, timed to the escort schedule, the P-38s get underway. And at still others, here go the long-range Mustangs to keep their rendezvous with the big friends someplace deep in Germany. Somewhere out there over enemy territory, near or far on the long route as the bombers go out and come home, each of these fighter formations will make rendezvous with them at a certain point on the exact minute. These Thunderbolts climb steadily over the channel and into hostile air. They keep fairly close together to prevent wandering and to save gas. That all-important item for the long-range escort fighter. He can't borrow a couple of coupons over Frankfurt or Cologne. Now they open up into battle formation, fairly line abreast. Each pair, leader and wingman, never willingly separated, is a combat element. 4 planes are a flight, 8 a section, 16 a squadron, 3 squadrons a group. All working together because it's teamwork every second or die. Just as simple as that. Close to rendezvous now, and in the distance are the bombers. Advanced formations of the perhaps 100-mile-long Armada. The Thunderbolts maneuver for their escort position. Each pilot searches the sky constantly, watching for the main enemy attack which may come near the coast or deep in Germany, or a hit-and-run sneak attack by the enemy's aerial snipers.
Red leader to outpost. Bogies at 10 o'clock level. Outpost to red leader. Your bogies look like friendly Spitfires.
But these black darts are not friendly.
This is red leader. All right, men on the ball. This is it. 109's at 9 o'clock. Yellow leader to outpost. 1 Fog Wolf coming in. Outpost to red leader. Can we get them? It's our turn, Chief. Red leader to outpost. White flight drop tanks and attack. Red flight stay up for cover. Yellow flight continue to escort.
Red flight gets rid of its long-range wing tanks before the fight. Then down they go. The sneak attackers try to run for it now, but the Thunderbolts are on them. With the touch of the finger on the stick, a camera and 8 machine guns are put into action. Small cameras set in the wings make the record. Poor pictures due to gun vibration. But you see it when it happened, as the pilot saw it. The armor piercing incendiary 50 caliber ammunition makes a flash when it strikes, and how it strikes. The bombers, ready with their own guns for anything that slips through, didn't need them this time. All over now, just a skirmish, part of the escort routine. The flight reforms and climbs to regain its position with the rest of the squadron. In the distance, coming in to relieve the Thunderbolts, is a group of Mustangs.
This is Red Leader. Okay, men, it's time to break escort. Mustangs coming in at 8 o'clock.
The Thunderbolts break escort. They head for home, watching for every possible strafing target on the way. The Mustangs, far in the distance, sweep the surrounding sky as they come in. Next to the belly or wing tank, which doubled the fighter range, the most important feature of long-range fighter escort was the relay system. Because of differences in bomber and fighter speeds and the need of much weaving, fighters used up their time and distance almost twice as fast as the bombers. Thus, the same group of fighters could remain with the bombers only 25 to 40 minutes out of a 6 or 8 hour mission, going and coming. And 1,000 fighters might be needed to keep anything from 40 to 100 on the job at all times. While the enemy could strike with 250 at any point he selected, our fighter groups had to relieve one another at rendezvous points all along the route, like this. Simple in diagram, but difficult in the limitless, often weather-blinded spaces of the enemy air. It took planning, leadership, and most of all, it took individual fighting skill and courage to match the enemy's tactical advantages. Forewarned an hour and a half by his radar as our bombers gained altitude over England, he had plenty of time to mass his fighters at his chosen point of attack and to outnumber our escort at anything from 2 to 1 to 10 to 1. This captured film shows how quickly the 109s and the Focke-Wulf 190s got into action. They were as grimly determined to stop these great daylight thrusts into their industrial heart as our bombers and fighters were resolved to press them home to the hilt. In Germany now, weaving ahead, above, below, and all around the bombers like a screen of destroyers protecting the main fleet, a group of escorting Mustangs watches every corner of the sky. They don't have long to wait. Ceaseless training plus battle experience has taught them to recognize the enemy almost by instinct. Where they are, how they act. First hostile aircraft is spotted.
Blue Leader here. Watch it, fellows. 109 to 10 o'clock.
The enemy fighters are massing for an attack on the bombers while our pilots watch every move of their very tactics.
Yellow Leader to Blue Flight. Looks like they're trying to lead us away from the bombers. Green Leader here. You're right. Here comes another. 9 o'clock.
Blue Leader here. Blue Flight drop tanks. Yellow and Green Flight stay up for cover.
The Mustangs drop wing tanks and plunge into the fight. The head-on dive through the fortress's formation is a favorite. So fast sometimes and so many, our fighters cannot head all of them off. The Huns make a sneak attack on our bombers from behind. Some of them get in close, as this captured enemy gun camera film shows, and hammer our bombers with their 20 millimeters. It's punishing, but they shall pay. The Mustangs are in the thick of it, and the battle ranges all over the sky as other formations join in. Jerry's attack in waves and sometimes inflict great damage before they're driven off. A B-17 catches fire and goes down in flames. The German pilots are determined. So are ours. To the death. tail shot off, but still going ahead. And still they come. We lose another, but they cannot stop us. Our fighters, often heavily outnumbered, engage the enemy all over the sky. And this battle is only one of many. Day after day, month after month, Mustang, Thunderbolt, Lightning against the ME-109s and the FW-190s. Our fighters attacked, attacked, attacked. 2 into 10, 6 into 50. They broke up the enemy's mass assaults. Then his shattered flights were pounced upon and destroyed individually. Our victory column soared at the rate of 4 to 1. Great and gallant days they were. Many new aces, many empty places. Victory, victory, death, victory, victory. While our ever-increasing fleets of fortresses and liberators pressed relentlessly onto their targets, whenever attacked, they defended themselves with legendary gallantry and effectiveness. If a missed rendezvous or other misadventure, due usually to blinding weather, prevented fighter protection somewhere, they suffered heavy losses. But no American fighter ever failed them because of enemy odds, however great. Never was a mission turned back by enemy action. Our bomber and fighter losses, though strikingly less than the enemy's, were heavy. But the home front sent us more bombers and fighters, and more well-trained pilots, and our fleets grew mightier by the month. But the enemy first-line operational strength was maintained also. The great air battle of Europe was still undecided. In February 1944, there was a sudden change. Our fighters were ordered to range wider, even at some risk to the bombers, to seek the enemy instead of waiting for him, and above all, to follow him to his destruction. A gigantic fighter battle raged across the European skies with victories by our fighters alone of 60, 85, over 100 destroyed each day. The fight came down from almost invisible heights to the final decision, perhaps only a few feet above the ground. Enemy warplanes of every kind and in fantastic numbers were splashed all over the landscape of northwestern Germany and occupied Holland, Belgium, France. Watch this 190 hit the dust. crucial battle. Both sides aware of the coming events and air domination itself at stake. Once again, a better cause, better planning and leadership, better equipment, and beyond everything else, the know-how valor of our fighter pilots gave us victory. Only this time it was decisive. So many of his aircraft exploded over his own forests and housetops, or were driven, flaming wrecks, into the ground. So many of his famous fighter leaders met death at the hands of some grimly determined boy from Illinois, or Wyoming, or wherever, that his morale was shattered. His defense plan was smashed. The Luftwaffe cried, "Enough." And the day arrived when a huge 8th Air Force bomber mission with full fighter escort was flown to Berlin and back in good weather without challenge by a single enemy fighter. Quickly now, our long-range escort fighters seized their opportunity. Since the enemy did not come up to fight, down they went to blast his planes to pieces and burn them on his own aerodromes all over Western Europe in the very heart of Germany. It was the most savage and devastating fighter ground attack on record. Returning from unchallenged escort duty and on many special missions, they burned his aircraft by hundreds, harried him from one airfield to another, forced on him a degree of dispersal ruinous to his efficiency. His frequently intense light flak, sheets of machine gun fire from flak towers and ground installation caused losses, heavy ones. 4 times as many as the same number of fighters would sustain in aerial combat. These are the films of the victors, and they do not show the cost. But our fighters never flinched, and by their fine courage facing destruction in single-engine planes only a few feet above the ground, 500 miles from their bases, they smashed the heavily concentrated front-line operational strength of the German Air Force forever. secondary revetments could be attacked only through the front door. These copied Allied Invasion Day stripes failed to deceive our pilots. The enemy often dispersed his aircraft in the woods fringing his airdromes. Always open season on this kind of sitting duck. Watch this boy reef it around for another crack. The steady, relentless bombing of Germany went on without ceasing. Against the enemy's occasional desperate efforts to intercept, we maintained fighter escort every step of the way. But the sky was ours, and another great opportunity was ours. His teeming, widespread, intricate transportation system. Feeding and supplying the great armies which he counted upon to throw our invasion forces back into the sea. Then something happened. The enemy's roads and railroads were struck with a mighty force of air power. They were tense days, crucial days, and both sides knew it. Our fighters, freed by their bitterly won victory in the air, became a dominant factor on the ground. These Thunderbolts are dive bombing. They strike home. But by far the greatest, the almost paralyzing destruction they inflicted was by the burning, hard-hitting fire of their 50 caliber guns. They exploded locomotives by the thousand and burned freight cars in uncounted numbers. No train in daylight hours was safe. No marshalling yard a haven. The enemy's desperately needed rail transport system was shattered all over the map. Tank goes up, one of many. No mistaking gasoline when you hit it. Target too small, even a single railroad car. The Hun tried to hide his trains in the woods, but it did not save them. His diversion of traffic to slow-moving barges was no escape. The hail of our fighter fire swept the canals. Flak towers like these cause us lots of damage. They took plenty in return. Radio and radar stations came in for a special beating. Flak and machine gun defense was forced upon the enemy wherever he hoped to move. It was intense. Watch these bursts of light flak. Much of it our skillful pilots knew how to avoid. Some of it cost us grievous losses. None of it turned us aside. ammunition tried to run the gauntlet in vain. Watch this staff car of a high German officer. Was it Rommel? Could be. At the same time came such a scourge of road traffic as never before known. The enemy could move his convoys effectively only at night, was delayed and destroyed wherever he turned the wheel. What did this mean to the German armies in the West? How did it count on Invasion Day and the Battle of Normandy? Here is the picture of the enemy's transportation system as he was able to take it into the crucial test. Yes, this is the report our fighter pilots send back to you. The great armadas of our bombers sailing unhindered through the enemy air. Our gallant armies driving ahead without having to keep one eye cocked over their shoulders. Their gun emplacements unobserved. Everywhere above the mighty battle was and is the flash of American fighters. The Thunderbolt, the Lightning, the Mustang. The Germans see them deep in their own sky and cringe. Our men see them above the grim fight and cheer. There are remembered names in the mess halls. Major Gerald Johnson, a crack shot. Major Goodson, gallant fighter. Major Dwayne Beeson, great tactician. Captain Eugene O'Neill, one of the best. Major Don Gentili ran up a flaming record. Colonel Don Blakesley, great leader of 4th Group. Major Walker Mahurin, one of the first and best of the great aces. Major Bob Johnson in all his victories. Lieutenant Colonel Gabreski, with a great career. And Colonel Hubert Zemke, famous commander of 56. A score of victories or more on the records of them all. Duncan, Schilling, Pretty, and many, many others. But this is not the story of our heroes. It belongs to all our gallant fighter pilots who in the decisive hour smashed the Luftwaffe and gave us freedom of the air.
At an 8th Air Force fighter base on the invasion coast of England, the commander of a combat wing pins DFCs on Thunderbolt pilots. They won those medals in the Battle of Germany, escorting our bombers to their targets. Ramrod is the fighter's name for an escort job, and a ramrod begins at Bomber Command. The route and the plan for the job comes over the scrambler phone into the combat ops room at Fighter Command. The time is late afternoon, October 1st, 1943, and the mission is Ramrod to Emden tomorrow. Let's draw it on the maps, have a look at the job. It's to be a big deal, almost 400 bombers. And here's their route into the target and out again, 300 miles and more each way. And where do they want fighter cover? Where are the rendezvous points? That's the key to a ramrod job. And so the details are sorted out and boiled down into the field order by A3. The deal is all wrapped up, but still General Kepner, fighter commander, must check before he gives the final okay that releases the whole complex machinery of another attack in the Battle of Germany. From Fighter Command through Fighter Wings, the field order goes by teleprinter. And finally, at about 2100 hours, the order clatters over the printer at the base of the 56th Fighter Group. And the same ramrod order reaches the Group Ops Room. And here is where words are translated into a weapon, translated into the ramrod to Emden. First, draw down the bomber route to the target and home again. and then the route of the Thunderbolts of the 56th Group, and all important, the rendezvous point and the rendezvous time. Always that emphasis on time, because time is gasoline, and gasoline may make the difference between success and failure of this mission. 90 seconds is your margin for error at the rendezvous point, but in those 90 seconds, a whole group of fortresses can be wiped out if fighters miss the rendezvous. Early on the morning of October 2nd, the S-2 officers prepare the maps for briefing the pilots who will fly to Emden. In this room, the attack order that began at Bomber Command completes its journey down in the fighter group. In another Nissen hut, a group operations officer reaches for the telephone.
Briefing at 13:30 hours. Got it?
Briefing at 13:30 hours. Roger.
It's a belly tank job, so get 'em on.
And the same order goes out to the ops officers of the other squadrons in the 56th Thunderbolt Group. And in each squadron now, the pilots are taking it easy. And they know a job is cooking. And take it easy now, boys, because soon the tension begins. And soon the pilots will know which names are down for each team on today's Ramrod to Emden. Each squadron commander knows his men, and wise as a football coach, he lines up his team, flight by flight. Out around the field, the ground crews put on the belly tanks that the Thunderbolts will need today to do their job. The name of this slugger is Little Cookie, and the two crosses record the Huns that have been blown to kindling by the 8 guns in the wings of these rugged fighters. Two things these fighters can do better than any Hun. They can dish it out, and they can take it. And they have to do plenty of both. The guns are loaded, the tank is on, and finally the gas. The precious gas. Back at headquarters, the Group CO studies the job in the ops room. A veteran of more than 80 missions, he knows full well what these lines on the map mean to planes and pilots. Like a Toscanini or a Benny Goodman, he must absorb and memorize the music because he leads the job today. And next, let's check with Stormy, the weather officer. Over the sea to landfall, 6/10 cloud at low altitudes. The Dutch island should be open for a landmark, but expect an overcast in the target area. The wind clocks at 110 miles per hour at 30,000 feet from the west. So get down low coming home or you might not get home. And then the S-2 officer checks the flak map. Those red areas up there on the Dutch coast spell danger. Anti-aircraft guns are down below that reach up to 30,000 feet, so look out. And now in the briefing room, the S-2 officers and the ops officers wind up the job of laying out today's mission on the large-scale map. And outside now, from scattered corners of a station that is sprawled all over the English hills, carefully dispersed to guard against sneak raiders, the 50 or more pilots who will go out today in Thunderbolts arrive at the briefing shack on battered bicycles and some in the always reliable Jeep. If it weren't for the bikes and the Jeeps, you'd have to spend half of each day just walking between the places you have to go on the average fighter station in Britain. The bomber crews were briefed hours ago for today's ramrod to Emden. A fighter briefing is plenty serious. 50 or more pilots for the day's job file into the briefing hut, and there they sit down. The CO comes in, and the briefing begins.
Well, here it is. The big friends are pasting Emden today. We're to give fighter cover from Zood Camp over the target and back out again to the sea and then part way home. The 56 will lead the show in. We escort the lead box of bombers. We've got to give them head-gun cover. Nothing must break through. The 4th Fighter Group covers the tail of our task force, and there should be over 100 of us. The B-17s will be in 3 boxes of 60 each, altitude 25,000 feet. The course home is 249 degrees magnetic, and remember, our rendezvous with the bombers is at 1548 at Zood Camp. They'll be to the north of us. Start engine at 1443. Take off 1449 to 1458. Set course 1503 at 3,000 feet. Course out 80 degrees. Target 89 degrees 1600. Course back 249. Land at 1722.
Carefully on the back of his hand, each pilot writes down the dope on the day's job. And now back to the CO again.
My wingman, White 2, will relay messages and work on the bomber channel. For the takeoff, I will lead the 61st off runway 5. The 62nd will queue up on runway 6. After I take off, the 63rd will move into position and be ready to shove as soon as the runway is cleared.
And now the dope on the enemy flak and fighters for the day's job from the S2 officer.
A flak map shows you where you may have trouble today. Heavy flak around Emuden and Amsterdam and over the target, so open up. Stay out to sea on the way home. German fighter strength is heavy here. Look out for twin-engine rocket ships. They'll be below you. Keep your eye out for them and don't let them through to the bombers.
And now the dope on the weather. Weather will be important today because the bombers are going to hit the Hun through heavy cloud. And the weather officer takes over the briefing now.
You'll see just about enough ground today to know the Earth is down below. The target area and the whole stretch of the Zuider Zee in Holland will be pretty well covered. The front over to the west of us won't affect the base for your return. There'll be scattered cloud. Winds above are 110 miles per hour at 250 degrees. Contrails will persist at 31,000.
And now, with the time check, the briefing will come to an end. This moment is dramatic in its tension and important. 4,000 men will be in the air on this ramrod to Emden. All 4,000 must be synchronized to the second. Okay, boys, good hunting. Jeeps will carry pilots to the planes. In England, as in Burma or in Italy, General Mud hangs to your feet. And like everything else in every army, the Jeep must carry twice the load it was designed to do. "54 pilots ride out to 54 planes. None of them know what lies ahead. They aren't worried because so far this group has shot down Huns at the rate of 4 for 1. The crew chief helps the pilot into a chute. And crew chiefs worship their planes and their pilots. And they always say, "Good luck, sir, see you later." And sometimes they may say, "How about lending me £1 until tomorrow, boss?" And now the time for start engine years. Six minutes after the first engine starts, the first squadron must begin the takeoff. 7 minutes later, all 54 planes must be airborne. Crew chiefs ride the wings to guide the pilots into the tight-packed lineup on the runways. Remember, no seconds can be wasted now. These Thunderbolts will need every thimble of gas to get to the target and fight and then get home again today. There goes the flare, and there goes the first pair, like sprinters at the starter's gun. The leader will fly 3 miles out, make a slow turn, and then before he finishes a half turn of the field, the 16 planes of his squadron plus 2 spares must be airborne and in position. The first squadron is off and the second gets away from the other runway. The third squadron moves into readiness where the first squadron took off 2 minutes ago. One slow climbing turn, all 3 squadrons will assemble and form into a huge V. The lead squadron in the center, the spearhead. The flights fly in a 4-ship V, 8 aircraft operating as a section. The trailing section flying 500 feet above the other. The 2 spares of each squadron straggle behind. Now the whole group sets course on 80 degrees. A slow climb to the Dutch coast, then open up into battle formation. 3 hours from now, home again, if you're lucky. From other fields, other fighter groups take off, Thunderbolts and Lightning. In the Battle of Germany, a fighter's first, last, and only job is to protect the bomber. Thunderbolts must climb to high cover positions above the bomber. Climb slow and compact and then open up. Each squadron to its planned position. Throttles are kept pretty well forward, so fighters must weave in orbit to cover the slower bombers. Sometimes our fighters will pull out 5 miles ahead to break up the frontal attack by the Huns. The Thunderbolts operate like interference in football, taking out the tactics. While they are still climbing, the fighters stay in close. Then it's wide open. The throttles are blasted forward as the combat begins. bandits are sighted and begin their slashing attacks through the bomber formations, and the Thunderbolts are on top of the attackers. See those two flares? Green, green, distress signal. A bomber needs help. And here come two Thunderbolts. There goes what was a Hun. The other pair of the flight. And now a snaky string of lightnings moves into the battle. They are the fighters that cover the bombers on deepest penetrations into Germany. Remember this, you can outdive anything you'll meet in the Battle of Germany. Keep on his tail and in the end you'll get him. Run wide open and you gotta reef it in. Watch these Huns. The single-engine jobs always hit the fortresses from the front. Going into the bombing run, you've really got to protect the bombers, because they've got to fly straight and level through flak and fighters to get their bombs onto the pinpoint targets down below. The opening of the bomb bays is the signal for the bandits to press home their attacks. The bandits know that the forts and libs cannot take evasive action until their bombs are away. The bombardier must forget his nose guns now and concentrate on that bomb site. Through cloud or clear skies, those eggs must go down and find the target. And it's up to you to help the bombers lay those eggs on targets like these. And now the battle moves on. On some missions, all the bombers go for a single target. On other days, several task forces will hammer different targets. Fresh fighter group moves into the scramble. It's hammer, hammer, hammer every mile of the way. Twin-engine Huns come up now with their long-range rocket guns. Watch this explosion. That was a Rocketeer. All the bombs are away, the ports and libs must fight their way home again. That's not easy because many of them are cripples now. And now is when fresh fighter groups speed into the battle to help their big friends get back to Britain. Across the sky that mean fresh fighter strength. Brother, the battered bombers are plenty glad to see it. You see the whole story in these contrails. The broad mass trails are where the bombers turn for home. And there are the single streaking trails that show how the Thunderbolts weave above the homing bombers as top cover. Look at that fort's tail. A 20 millimeter chewed it off. Are bound to get it. There goes one of the big boys spinning down. Some of the fighters get it too. There's the single shoot of a Thunderbolt pilot floating down. Many of the men shot down over Germany are still alive, prisoners of war. Black smudges of the flak that come up from the anti-aircraft guns below. is hot as ever through Flack and fighters as the forts move on and on to the coast. Sometimes the battle goes on halfway across the channel. Welcome is the sight of the coast of England. But even then, the battle is not ended, because crippled planes must still be landed, and often that is not easy. The battle-damaged fighters limp home to land ahead of their group. Watch this landing. His right tire is shot away. Easy, hold it. And at last, he's down. And now a group of Lightnings land. Now the 56th group comes home. Flight after flight will peel off. Flight moves into peel-off position as each proceeding flight goes into the approach. Hurry, hurry, because gas is low. First are down in close order. They must clear the end of the field as fast as possible. Taxis to its own hard standing, widely dispersed around the field. Pilots to their planes now take them back to the interrogation. A pretty happy bunch. They got 4 Huns and lost none of their own planes today. Now, this is the Thunderbolt group that swore back last April that they would knock down 100 Huns by Armistice Day, and they made it, with 2 to spare. The S-2 officer, the pilots call him the spy, conducts the interrogation. It's a lot different from the last time they were together, when they were tense and expectant at briefing. The spy will ask, well, how about the rendezvous? And Gabby, a squadron leader, will reply, we hit it on the nose, 1558 at Zood Camp. And then the spy will say, okay, and now for the claims. How many Huns did you get today? Well, I blasted one Farquhar at that island. He took plenty of lead, but he went down. And then another one. I parked him on a cloud. Nice shooting, brother. And how about our big friends? Did anybody see any bombers go down? Yeah, I saw one. 6 guys bailed out. Any more claims? Yeah, I got one of those rocket carriers. He tried to get away, but I nailed him. And so it goes. Another ramrod comes to an end. It's been a good one. Only 4 bombers were lost today, thanks to the fighters. Bottoms up, the hunting was good.